A mid to upper level trough over the eastern U.S. is amplifying. That means enhanced large-scale lift with shortwave energy digging into the mid-Mississippi Valley and propagating southeastward. Over Florida, this is feeding into a stationary boundary that has been draped across central Florida. Over Georgia, high pressure dominates the surface, and the dry air mass aloft is suppressing moisture. Moisture transport, i.e. deep layer moisture, P watts, is elevated over South Florida ahead of the front. Aloft, moisture profiles are saturated or nearly so in many soundings. In Georgia, in contrast, PWAT values are well below climatological norms, for example around 0.72 inches, and the atmosphere is quite dry above a shallow boundary. Surface boundary, a frontal or quasi-stationary boundary, sits across central Florida. It has been slow to move, but under influence of the mid-level shortwave, this front is expected to shift southward over the day. Synoptic plus mesoscale drivers. The amplifying shortwave overhead will continue to inject upper-level support and slightly enhanced instability. The stationary front over central Florida will slowly shift south. Ahead of it, moisture is pooling, PWATS between 2.1 and 2.4 inches over South Florida. Deep layer moisture, i.e. relatively saturated profiles, plus the sea breeze convergence this afternoon/evening will be sufficient triggers for convective storms. Storm/rainfall characteristics. Afternoon and evening storms likely. Heavy downpours with rainfall rates 2 to 4 inches per hour in the strongest cells. There's potential for training of storms moving over same areas repeatedly, especially eastern South Florida, increasing flood risk. Because soils are saturated, any locally heavy storms could produce flash flooding. Wind/boundaries. Light winds early, variable until mid-afternoon. Sea breezes from both coasts, Atlantic and Gulf, will become more active. Once the front gets closer, winds will turn more northerly. Marine layers, coastal convergent zones will also modulate where storms form. For aviation, expect shift from light, variable winds to moderate northeasterly or north-northeast later today into Friday. Temperatures and sky conditions. Highs generally in upper 80s to low 90s. Slight cooling behind the front in some areas, particularly near Lake Okeechobee, and in zones where cloud cover and rain are more persistent. Overnight lows in the mid to upper 70s. Skies will be partly to mostly cloudy during thunderstorms. Otherwise, cloud cover and humidity will support muggy conditions. Today's big picture. Mechanisms in play, mid/upper level shortwave trough giving large-scale lift and helping drive the frontal boundary south. As it deepens, the front's migration accelerates. Stationary/slowly moving surface front over central Florida that is acting as a barrier and convergent zone, but also as a boundary separating moist, unstable air on its south side from somewhat drier or less unstable air to the north. Deep layer moisture over South Florida, high PWATS moist soundings, enabling efficient precipitation once lift is provided. Sea breeze plus front plus diurnal heating. Sea breeze interactions and local boundaries over Florida, crucial in determining where storms initiate and cluster. Interactions with the frontal boundary as it moves south will act to focus storms. Dry, stable air aloft and high pressure regime over Georgia that suppresses convective triggering despite solar heating. Summary. Florida is in a moist, unstable regime today, with convective storms likely this afternoon and evening. Heavy rainfall, training storms, flash flooding potential are key concerns. Winds will shift and seas stirred, especially around strong storms. Georgia is quiet, dry, stable, warm, with little to no convective activity. Excellent conditions for VFR operations, though warm days and cool nights likely. For pilots, plan for convective avoidance over Florida later today. Over Georgia, expect stable flight conditions, but monitor low-level moisture overnight, perhaps localized fog in low valleys.